Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Divorce Happens, the podcast where we support you before, during, and after divorce with education, inspiration, and a little bit of laughter because, as we know, divorce happens and then you start fresh. And we're here with a very important topic today and one of our amazing Fresh Starts experts, Lindsey. Lindsey, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Sure. Hello, Olivia. My name is Lindsey Mahanna. I'm a professional organizer. I'm based in Morris County, New Jersey, about an hour from New York City. And I love helping folks create order in their lives by organizing their physical spaces and creating systems to support their unique needs. I work with clients in person and also virtually.
Well, I'm very excited to chat with you today because it is no surprise that when you go through a divorce, you will end up, when you have kids, with two homes that you need to really manage and take care of. And though it may be wild to think about, right, as like maybe a co parent in one home, you still kind of have to know what's going on in the other home and, get those kids organized and the families organized. And that is incredibly overwhelming. So I'm very happy and excited to talk to you today. What can we do, Lindsey, when it comes to just this like chaos of divorce and multiple homes and kids all over the place?
Yes, of course. So I would say we're going to start by talking about calendars, right?
Okay.
Let's know where people are and when,
That's a novel idea.
especially right, especially for the children. So everyone has different types of calendar systems, and I'd say no matter what type of system the mom is using or the parent, we want to have something that's really visual for the children. And
Okay.
so there's a whole wide variety. There's no right answer for that. In my house, it's a whiteboard calendar on the wall in the kitchen. It could be something printed from a digital calendar that you hang on the fridge, or it could be a fancy skylight calendar. They're all the rage right now, but they are very expensive. So just know that you just want something visible in the kitchen or in your main traffic area where the kids know where they're going and who's where. I do mine color coded, so each person in my family has a different dry erase marker, and we mark
I love
who's
that.
where and when.
Yeah.
So I think this is just a great tool because it also grounds the children to the space a little bit. They know they can walk in, they're going to see this calendar. It's nice to actually talk through it as a family together as well. So in my house, this is Sunday night at dinner. We look at the upcoming week, and my kids even ask for it if I forget. Oh, are we going to talk about the schedule this week?
Mm-hmm.
So we sit down, and maybe in your house, if your kids aren't there, if they're with their other parent, maybe it's a different night. But you sit down and you look at the week ahead.
Right.
You can decide how much detail you want of the adult life in there, but you definitely want kind of like if a
Yeah.
parent is traveling, where a kid is sleeping that night.
Yeah.
Um, even if it's the same every single week, kids really like to see the
Yeah.
schedule. Even if they know every Wednesday night I have dinner at dad's, write it down.
Yeah.
Because there always are exceptions, especially around this time of year with
Mm-hmm.
holidays and the schedules
Mm-hmm.
may change. So I'd say start with the calendar, talk to your kids about it, give them some ownership. As they get older, you may want to share digital calendar.
Yeah.
Um, this is also a little bit kind of like adulting 101 for your kids at the same time, right? So
Yeah.
then you want to look into Google Family Calendar, Cozy Family Organizer. That's a favorite of mine.
Mm-hmm.
But you still want something visual for the family.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a child that's neurodiverse, having this sense of order can be even more important. A lot of times, neurodiverse kids they think they can track everything in their head. They kind of can
Mm-hmm.
actually push back about writing things down.
Yeah.
So they need it sometimes even
Yeah.
more than they think they do.
Yeah.
So again, starting with the calendar when you have kids who are moving between houses, and then if it's a blended family and there's bonus kids, that can add sometimes a little more chaos at first. So again, just the more visual order you can give to them.
I love that, Lindsay. I love that so much because when you go through a divorce, you lack structure, right? And you kind of have to rebuild that structure from the ground up. And so much of what we know from divorce is you can only control what's happening in your household, right? You can't control what's happening in your ex's household. But in your household, you can have that calendar. And I love the color coded because then especially if you have bonus kids, right? It's like everybody gets a color and it's exciting and you get to like have this strategy. Like that's the word that keeps coming up in my head when you're talking. It's a strategy for survival, right? It's a strategy for right,
Yeah,
for coping. And also, like you said, kids really want to know where they are and where they're sleeping, and it can just ease so much of that anxiety, right? To like almost like when kids go into like a classroom, right, and they can see what's on the schedule for that day, for them to
exactly.
know what's happening. So I love that. And it seems so simple, right, to say like put up a calendar of where the kids, but in our heads as the grown-ups we're like, oh, it's a 5-5-2 schedule or it's a 50-50 or whatever it is, right? That doesn't mean anything to the kids, right? They need to know exactly what's happening in their life. So I love that. And I love that you said you can convert that into a digital, because I'm thinking even like kids have their own phones, right? So you can have a family calendar, like a Google calendar. So just everything you said was wonderful. Such brilliant advice.
Thanks. And I do want to share just a tip for the parents themselves, right? So co-parents need to communicate with each other, whether that's easy or hard. So a lot of people I know use Google Sheets where it's, to share a document and they can, put timelines on there and schedules. But I also want to share there's also an app called Elementor 2,
Mm,
which you can track custody, expenses, drop offs, pickups. That is a great tool, I think, especially when things can be more contentious.
mm,
So, just know that there are tools out there, and I'm sure there's new tools being invented every day.
yeah,
So, the more you can rely, again, on these tools, you're not, especially moms, we have such a mental load. The
yeah.
more you can get written down and out of your head so you're not spinning about it, the easier your life is, the more present you can be for your children.
Absolutely. And I just want to add to like I'm a mom with ADHD, and so like normal tasks for me are very difficult. Calling the school, updating things. And when we're talking about a family going through a divorce process, we're not just talking about the regular chaos of day to day. We're talking about there's lawyers you have to call. There's updating address information, the new bus information. Right? It's so overwhelming. And so I love that it's like any place we can find to build a little strategy, let's take that and run with that.
Yeah, I think, structure and routine give us a chance to catch our breath. So anytime you can put that in place,
Yeah.
it gives you a moment to catch your breath and be able to focus on something else. So we've talked a little bit about kind of where people are. So now I want to give some strategies for helping get these little people back and forth to the houses, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times a kid's going to have duplicate items. They're going to have a toothbrush at mom's and a toothbrush at dad's. But a lot of things still need to move back and forth with the children.
Mm,
Like they need to bring their school bag. They're going to bring their loveys. They might need to bring sports equipment or
yep.
musical instruments. And this is a lot to track. And especially in the beginning, this can be a very emotional time for the kids in general. And they're not thinking, oh, I need to remember to bring my flute with me.
Yeah.
So this is again where if you can put a little structure in place. And again, it can be just a checklist. It could be something you can print out every week and kids can check off
Yeah.
that, what do they need to bring? Help them remember. It also helps mom remember as well. It's something,
Hmm.
it can be a template you reuse and there's a
Yep.
space to add new things.
Yeah. I love that. Again, any way that we can make it easier for people, right? And I think we still don't give families enough grace when it comes to this transitional time. And the transitional time can last 15 years, let's be honest, right? Because when you're talking about the management of moving children back and forth from a house to a house, that needs to be like a project management. I mean, that's like you really got to know what's going on. So I love that idea of like building out those checklists, and that's something that you could probably help clients with, I assume.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then the other piece that makes it easier is having an organized home, right? And this doesn't mean it's picture perfect. Don't get sucked into these social media
Yeah.
pictures. Organized just means everything has a home. It has a place to live.
Yep.
Now, if you've stayed in the marital home, that may seem easy, like the backpacks have always lived here. But a lot of times with divorce, both parents are starting over in a new space.
Yeah.
And so it's a restart of where are things going to live because
Right.
that child can more easily remember their items and find them for packing if they know where their items live. So I say make things easy and make them visual. you
Mm,
know, labels, big baskets, even zones. It
Yeah.
doesn't always have to be, this is the perfect container for this item. Can we just have a zone? Like, this is the after school
Right.
zone. This is where I'm going to drop my shoes and my
Right.
sports equipment and all of
Right.
that. So,
Yeah.
a mom can be still, this transition is hard on everyone. So,
Yeah.
you really want to focus on easy solutions. And this is where someone like me can
Yeah.
help, and you're not getting sucked into, I need it to be perfect.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking as you're talking, the importance of working with someone like you to give people permission to not have the perfect, visually styled household, but the how do I say this? Not having screaming fights in the morning about where your shoes are outweighs having maybe a visually perfect household, right? Like, so setting up a zone that may be a little messy, right? And have shoes all over the place, but that the shoes go there, that is more important than maybe having a beautifully styled, right, shoe rack, but nobody uses it, and then everybody's yelling at each other in the morning before the bus, right? So there's like a balance that you have to have.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people have the misconception that organizers are just there to make your picture perfect pantry, but a lot of organizers do have this skill of working with someone who struggles a little bit more with organization and can help
Yeah,
you find that functional answer that is easy and works within your budget. There are
yeah,
a lot of us who, like, I specifically specialize in helping neurodiverse families, and I have that background of what are some solutions that, yes, maybe we're not going to post to Pinterest, but they work for your family.
right.
So we want to get function over form a little bit. And ideally, the balance of both. It looks pleasant and also can work for everyone to find their items.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I just love this. I mean, I've worked with organizers in the past, and when you work with somebody like you who gets to know your family and the way that your brain thinks, it really can change the structure of how you live your life. And I think that people don't realize that. Like you said, you're not just coming in to make the cans look pretty on the pantry, but you're coming in to help them live their life in a more efficient way. So, all the things we talked about today, Lindsay, are these all things you can help people with, and how do you work with clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, if you live near me, I can come to your house in northern New Jersey and help you in person. If you're further away, I have virtual organizing sessions, or I can also help you find an in-person person near you. I also offer body doubling sessions, which, if you're unfamiliar, body doubling is when you just work alongside someone. It's kind of like having an accountability partner. So, let's
Yeah.
say you're struggling with folding your laundry and you just have trouble initiating, you would just get on a Zoom call with me, and we would both work on a project alongside of one another and just help keep each other accountable. And that is super inexpensive and affordable. And it just helps someone, especially someone neurodiverse who has trouble with these tasks that are
Yeah.
not fun and really mundane, it helps them just tackle it and feel like they have, like, a friend on the other side of the computer that can just help
Yeah.
keep them accountable. So those are some ways. Following me on social media, I share lots of tips. And definitely, I'm always also just happy to have a phone call with someone and just help give them some strategies to try.
Yeah, I would say if you're listening to this and you're going through divorce, give Lindsay a call just so she can help set you up for success, no matter where you are, with those checklists, with the strategies, with the calendar, and all that stuff. Because it's about so much more than the stuff, right? It's not really about the stuff. It's about the strategies for living this life that we ultimately really want to live with peace and harmony and not screaming at our kids in the morning. And of course, you can find Lindsay at Fresh Starts Registry in the Expert Guide. Lindsay, if somebody's listening to this and they're going through a divorce or considering a divorce, what would be some words of encouragement that you could leave them with?
The first thing I'd say is be gentle with yourself. Divorce, you're grieving. You're grieving a future that you thought you were going to have.
Yeah.
And grief, we don't know how it's going to hit us. And it can be years of grief. And the grief, depending on what type of marriage and what type of divorce you've gone through,
Yeah.
is different for every single person. So I say be gentle with yourself, one thing at a time, one small step, and do the best you can. You're doing a great job.
Oh, I love that. And get the support you need with people like
Yeah.
Lindsay. Home organizers are so important, especially for grown-ups that have a hard time processing how to be a grown-up. So I very much understand. Lindsay, this was really invaluable. Thank you so much for being here.
It was great. Thanks so much.